All right. Hey there. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to another episode of Vendu's Reseller Podcast. We're here today to talk about garage sale strategies with Rod, who you might know him on Instagram and YouTube as Picking and Punching. Vendu is your one-stop shop for all things e-commerce, diving deep into strategies, tools, and success stories that will help you on your reselling journey. If you're a reseller looking to scale your online business, or you're just starting out and you're curious about the reselling world, then you've come to the right place. Take a moment and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any future episodes. With that, we will go ahead and get started. My name is Deanna. I work for Vendu, and we are here with Rod. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been selling.
Yeah, so I got a pretty interesting background, a little bit different than a lot of other resellers out there. I'm actually a third generation picker. I've been picking. My grandparents were pickers. My grandmother used to work at her local church thrift store, and she used to get items to take to the flea market and resell. My grandparents used to go garage sale hunting and then sell stuff at the flea market in like the 90s. My dad used to own a hauling and tree service business. So we would clear out estates and people that would die that would have no next of kin. So we would get a ton of merchandise from there, and then we would take that to like auction houses and to dump in other places. And for me, I started reselling all the way to my like elementary school. As a little kid, I would buy candy the little candy shop and take it to school. And I remember the principal calling my parents and let them know that I was flipping candy in school, making kids spend their lunch money. But now I've been reselling for over 25 years. So.
Wow, that's funny. I always hear the true entrepreneurs because they always started like in elementary school selling something, on the side.
Yep, I'm always been a hustler throughout the time, but and then as I got older, I was working a bunch of jobs I just hated, and I was doing this pretty much as a second job, not because I needed to have a second income. I just loved doing it so much, and I decided to quit my job, go full time, and I was actually also too. I did professional wrestling for several years. So I did professional wrestling for several years. And then when I used to travel around the country, go to wrestling shows, I used to go picking along the way. Hence how my channel got started, about a guy who was punching and picking his way across America. Welcome to Picking and Punching.
Oh, great. So we had a little story behind your username.
Yeah.
We'll mention this again at the end, but you can find him. Picking and Punching is his name on Instagram. And I believe it's the same on YouTube.
YouTube, Facebook. Yeah, I try to keep it the same across the board. I also have another channel called Flipping and Punching, which is more like behind the scenes. And then I also do sports cards, which is picking and punching cards, which I just started in the last couple of months, going back to my passion as a kid. So, but that's actually how I originally got into reselling, is sports cards. So it's come full circle after all these years.
And you're back to it. So I was going to ask you what you sell. You went a little bit into that already, but like in general, what items do you sell the most, and what are your main platforms?
Yeah, so I'm at what we call an everything seller. I try to flip anything that I can see that I can make money on. I like to specifically stay in like the pop culture category, like comic books, sports cards, video games, toys, action figures, and stuff I have a passion for. But I will sell antiques, vintage clothing, regular clothing, anything I can make money on with that. As eBay is my main platform, but because of Vendu, I've actually started cross-listing to Poshmark. I've been cross-listing to Mercari, and I absolutely love Whatnot. Whatnot's been a total game changer for my business, and it completely changes how I source now. And the cool thing about Vendu is I'm allowed to cross-list to my items from my eBay store over to Whatnot. I can put them in the Stack Marketplace, or I can just add them to my auctions, and it's been just a game changer for my business.
Oh, great. I'm glad you're enjoying Whatnot. So are you making sales on both live selling and off the marketplace?
Yeah, I started doing live selling there, and I was doing live selling only. But then when Vendu started adding the beta version of Whatnot on there, where I can add items from my eBay store directly over there, it's been a game changer. So now I list all my items, cross-list everything over to the Stack Marketplace as well, which I think is very underrated. There's a lot of people that do not know about the Static Marketplace. They think Whatnot's just a live selling platform, but I get more sales on Whatnot's Static Marketplace than I do on Mercari and Poshmark combined.
Oh, wow. Well, That's a good statistic to know. Especially with the kinds of things you're selling. I mean, those are popular items on Whatnot.
Yeah, Whatnot was originally started as a collector's platform, comic books, sports cards, toys. So, the stuff I do sell has it fits in that kind of that little niche real perfectly.
Yeah. As I was preparing for this interview, I was watching your YouTube videos, and I did notice what you've already mentioned, that you do a lot of garage sales and estate sales. I see that more on your channel more than things that a lot of resellers, more traditional resellers, will pick, say that like thrifting, thrift stores, and things like that. What drew you to garage sales, which I think is very like underrated form of thrifting? It does depend on your area a little bit.
Yeah.
You coming from Florida, you have garage sales probably pretty much year round, whereas in a Midwestern state like mine, or in a northern state, it's very, very cold or snowing part of the year. But what kind of drew you to the garage sales?
Yeah, so garage sales is my number one. I like garage sales, flea markets, and then private picks is pretty much the best. I mean, I used to do thrifting. I have done estate sales, but the reason why I like garage sales so much, because I don't tell people I'm a picker. What I like to say is like I'm a modern day treasure hunter. So the garage sale gives me the treasure hunting aspect. You get to go to random people's houses. You get to meet people. You're networking. A lot of my private picks come from garage sales, but the reason I like garage sales the best is because they have the highest ROI compared to thrift stores and flea markets and everybody, because you can find them for $1, flip it for a couple hundred, where a lot of thrift stores have caught on. Now they do price their stuff up higher, where you still make profits on it, but you will be paying up for items, and there's a lot more competition. Where I found garage sales, I'm very strategic in my strategy, and I do really well with them.
Definitely. So you said something interesting with the private pick. What does that mean exactly for everyone listening?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I always tell resellers, you always have to be expanding your network. So I'm really big at networking. Everywhere I go, I tell people what I do. I tell my friends, family what I do. And I always say, hey, if you guys ever know anyone getting rid of stuff, let me know. And instead of people like donating stuff to, let's say, Goodwill, or calling like an auction company, something like that, they'll just give me a call. I'll come in, and I won't cherry pick everything. I'll give them an offer for everything they have. So come in there. But the best thing about doing a private pick, especially if it's like collections or high-end collectibles, I have no competition. So I don't have to worry about someone else coming up from a garage sale behind me trying to offer more money. I'm not trying to rush it. I can take my time, because, like, for example, if I go to a garage sale in a community of like 50 houses, I can only spend X amount of time at each house, because I need to get to the next sale, because I don't want to miss too many items there. Compared to a private pick, I can sit there and take my sweet old time and spend an hour, 2 hours there going through stuff, making sure I'm doing my due diligence. So I really do enjoy the private picks. Not to mention, if I do a giant private pick, I don't have to go sourcing maybe for the next week or two. And that saves me so much time for my business, because that time you spend going out sourcing. Even though it's the best part about reselling is the sourcing aspect, I can now use that time to list or to work on building my business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you get a lot of inventory at once, and can cut down on your sourcing time. Have you ever done like storage units before?
I haven't done storage units, just for the fact that I had so much merchandise. I was preparing to quit my job and go full time, but we just built a brand new house. So I literally had like 2 storage units completely filled with merchandise. But that's in the plans, actually. I'm actually downsizing as much stuff right now as possible. So hopefully by end of the year, I'll have down to maybe there's like 1 storage unit of merchandise. And then my plan next year is actually to start buying some storage units, because I think it'd be great content for my channel. But it's also the evolution of a reseller. You gotta dabble everything, see what you like best, and just go from there.
Yeah, definitely. And it ties in with Whatnot nicely, because I've
Yeah.
seen so many storage unit based Whatnot live sales.
Well, they actually have a storage unit category now. They have an estate sale category and a garage sale category, which they didn't have last year. So that's something new in the last year. I think they brought out.
Definitely. So, and you can be kind of on the ground floor of that, and helping to build that. So, since you go to a lot of garage sales, estate sales, and probably especially in the private pick area, what is some of the best and maybe some of the strangest things that you found when you're out treasure hunting?
So probably the best thing I've ever found was this. So back in the 80s, you had Nintendo, which was, the beginning of the consoles and all the video game stuff. I mean, there was Atari and other stuff before that, but that was really the staple of what stood out there. And I found a game called Castlevania. The game was brand new, sealed. So I literally, I found someone on Facebook Marketplace. They literally posted up an ad at like 5 or 6 o'clock saying, "Hey, I have all this stuff I need to sell." I reached out to them, and they said, "Oh, we got some coming." So I took a nap on my couch, woke up an hour later to a message saying, hey, if you want this stuff, you need to come tonight. And it was like, they like bring $1,000, and it was like an hour away from my house. So I drove down to this place. The guy literally waited till the very last second. He'd be out at midnight of his property and had a whole like van just filled with video games. So I bought all that stuff from him. But because I talk about networking, let people know what else you want to buy. Let them know that I do buy other stuff, higher end stuff if you ever had any. Called me back 2 weeks later and went back to see him. And I got 50 sealed video games. One of them happened to be Castlevania for the NES. At that point in time, I sent it off to get graded at WADA, which is they grade video games. They grade the box, the seal, everything on it. There was only 26 in the world that were graded at the time I sent that in. And I ended up selling it for, I think, $8,500. So I paid $375 for that. So that was like my best find ever on that. Probably the weirdest thing, and I actually did this recently at a yard sale. And if you guys ever come across this, do not pass these up. But I bought women's underwear from the 1980s, brand new. I know it sounds, someone's gonna clip this, and I'll be canceled. But but no, women's underwear, guys' underwear, garments from the 60s, 70s, 80s, brand new, still sealed, tube socks, all that stuff sells really, really well. And I bought a box of a box of brand new underwear from the 80s, and they're gonna sell really well. You get sometimes you get 30 to 20 to $40 a piece for those.
They do, and I'm more on the clothing side, and yeah, I can tell you, there's been eBay auctions for underwear from like the 1930s through the 1960s. Auctions that have just gone for insane amounts. Yeah. So yeah, you're exactly right there.
Well, when you tell people this, and people saw my video, they're like in shock. You're like, what? Underwear? Like, you just don't. It's the things that's the best thing about reselling, because you learn these crazy things along the way. Things that you potentially thought had no value at all could actually be big money. So.
Yeah. And with those video games right now, I've recently had an experience where I helped my husband sell a lot of his old games. And I knew as soon as you said Castlevania, I knew right away. He had one of those too that we sold for a lot of money, but it wasn't a sealed and all that. And we still got a lot of money for it. So I knew if you had a sealed one, you had something special.
I messed up though. I probably could have got a lot more money for that, because when I got the game, I sent it off to get graded. I should have paid the extra money for the express to get a faster turnaround with it. But it was at the time during COVID, and everything got delayed. So I didn't get back to like a year later. And I actually reached out to a couple of different auction houses. And when I reached out to them, let them know what I had, they said it was valued between $15,000 to $30,000, they thought at that time. But I decided to hold on a little bit. I should have just sent it off right away, took my money and ran. I mean, I still made $8,500. I mean, I still got $8,500 for it. So at the end of the day, I still made about $8,000 on it. But I definitely left some money on the table. So.
Yeah. And that's crazy, because that's you got that through networking with a guy who you bought $1,000 worth of stuff from, and then you bought more stuff with him, and just one item made $8,500.
The second time I went there, I bought 50 something brand new seal games, everything from like Atari to GameCube to NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, and I paid, I think, like $2,600 the second time around I met him. And it was a smaller lot, more higher end stuff. And that one game paid for everything 2-3 times over now. So,
yeah. All right. That's awesome. Okay. So if you go to his YouTube and you watch, you'll actually pick up a lot of like little tips about how to navigate garage sales. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. The very first thing I noticed that you are walking into the garage sale and you are super friendly. You know, when I go to a garage sale, I'm like, I'm just like over here doing my thing. You're walking up to the people and saying hello, and like, just right away kind of making a rapport. So let's talk about that a little bit, and what any other tips besides just in general being a nice guy that can get you a great deal at a garage sale.
Sure. So first thing I do when I walk up to a yard sale, I'm like the Terminator. If you ever watched the movie The Terminator, he just scans around. So as I'm walking, I'm scanning that entire yard sale from the street. Before I get up there, I know right where I'm going for. But you also need to be a detective. So when I go to a yard sale, if I see them wearing band shirts, I'm going to ask for vintage concert shirts. If I see them having kids at the thing, I'm going to ask for video game stuff. The biggest thing is the biggest mistake people make at yard sales is the power of the ask. So like you said, you go up there, you put your head down, but you just told me that you like to sell clothing. So if you had an opportunity to get a massive collection of like vintage band tees or something like that, that would just that would make your day. But if you go up there, if you don't have an interaction with them, if you don't talk to someone, you're never going to get that opportunity. So this is how I get a lot of my private picks. So when I go to yard sales, I'm always friendly. I talk to them, not because I want to have a good deal or anything like that, because I like to interact with people. Because if you get someone laughing, you get people joking around, more at the end of the day, you're going to have a better experience. They're going to have a better experience. You're going to have a better chance of getting good deals on things. It's like one of those things. Have you ever bought anything from someone that you don't like, or just that have a bad attitude? Never. Same thing. I would, if someone came to my house and was giving me a hard time and I had stuff in my yard sale, I just wouldn't sell it to them. So that's the mindset I have when I go to a yard sale. So you want to be joking around, have a good time, and the power to ask. If you see, ask them what they have, because the biggest thing I learned from yard sales, and like this past weekend, I went to over 50 yard sales over the weekend. I hit a bunch of community sales in my area. Yeah, all the community sales are popping up right now because I'm in Florida and it's the fall. So we don't have a lot of sales in the summer because it's so hot. So our sales are in spring and fall is like our peak time for sales. And when I walk up the sale, I'm asking for certain items. And then also too, I just totally forgot what I was going to say. I'll come to me here in a second, but I would say, walk up to the yard sale, ask them, have a rapport with them. Yeah, I totally forgot what I was going to say. I do apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any negotiation tips for prices for when you're at garage sales or estate sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to bundle items, but what I always like to do is I like to test the waters, because the worst thing to do is when you go to a yard sale and they don't have any price on anything, and then you grab all this stuff, you spend 20 minutes there, you make a pile, and then they're asking eBay or above eBay prices for items, and there's no room to make money. So what I like to do is I like to find certain items on the table that I'm maybe potentially interested in. I'll pick up an item and say, hey, how much you have on this, or how much you have on this, because I'm testing the waters. I want to see kind of where their pricing is. And then also too, I always ask for, like, for example, if you find like, say I find like a Coach purse at the yard sale. A lot of people don't like to buy Coach purses because they think they could potentially fake or something like that. Fake. Another thing I like to do is I like to ask them, hey, what's the backstory in this? Is this, and people will tell me, oh, I got this as a gift. Oh, I bought this when I was in Nashville at the Coach store. So it helps me understand if I can authenticate items. Also too, though, finding out where they got it from also gives you a good understanding of if they have an emotional response, if they have an emotional connection to those items. Like, for example, if I walked up to a yard sale and it's some guy's G.I. Joe collection, I say, hey, where'd you get this from? He's like, oh, this is my childhood. I just, finally the wife's making me get rid of it. Well, I know right away it's going to be probably a tough negotiation because he has an emotional connection to those items. But if I walk up to the sale and I see a massive G.I. Joe collection and I say, hey, what's the backstory? Where did you get all these items? It's because you don't see a lot of those items in one place at one time. And they're like, oh, my uncle passed away and I inherited all this stuff. I just need it gone. Well, then I know at that point in time, I'm probably going to get a really good deal because they just want things gone. So that's the biggest reason why I like to talk to people, find the backstory out behind the items. And that's really going to help you in negotiation. And then also ask them too, hey, if I buy a bunch of items, if you get a couple of prices thing, the prices are good. If I get a bunch of items, would you work me a deal? And majority of the time people will say, yeah, because they're just trying to get items out of there.
Yeah, that's a great thing about garage sales is for a fact they want to get rid of that stuff. And most likely, if they're anything like me, when I hold a garage sale, I have a rule, like none of the stuff is coming back in the house. Yeah. So if it's out here on the yard, if it's not sold, it's going to Goodwill straight away. So
no, but if someone came up to your yard sale and you told them like, yeah, they're like, hey, what are you doing with all this stuff? You're like, oh, I'm clearing out. Whatever I don't sell, I'm taking the Goodwill. Well, right away, if someone say, hey, I'll just give you $100 for everything, you'd be like, you know what? Just take it. I'm gone. I'm gonna have to deal with it, and then you're just moving on. But that's perfect example of just what you're saying.
Yeah, especially, and maybe like even if you were to circle back, like if you're there early and you see there's good stuff you're going to leave behind, and you ask them that question, and you can say, what if I come back at 2:00 and just buy whatever you have left, or something like that.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
I tend to try to go to a lot of estate sales on the last day because a lot of times things are 50, even sometimes 70% off. Maybe you missed some of the good stuff that was there the day one, but you're definitely going to get like big deals on the second day of those estate sales.
Yeah, so I'll give some good tips for estate sales because I used to do a lot of estate sales in the past. One is majority of your areas are going to have, your area may have 5 or 10 different estate companies. Keep on your phone, like the notepad on your phone, write down the state company's name. And when you go there, say go there day one, and if their prices are super high, then hey, just go on day 2 or day 3 because they're going to do 25% off or 50% off. Or if you go to the estate sale company and that they really don't have any idea what they're doing, they're just pricing stuff like well below eBay pricing, that's the time you want to go get there in line and wait to get into a sale. So knowing your estate sale companies and how they actually price items and knowing a little background behind them is huge. Also, too, estate sale companies usually have a mailing list. Make sure you get in the mailing list because they'll send you an email early in the week with pictures of all the items that are actually going to be on them. Some of them do that. And then that way you can scout and kind of see what they have. Also, introduce yourself and let them know what you do. I got in good with a couple of different estate companies, and they would call me when they get items, and they would allow me to come to the estate sale before the estate sale would start so I can get good deals on items. That's what
Awesome.
Going back to what I said earlier about how networking is so important to reselling.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be great. And especially if like what do they do with all the stuff that doesn't sell at the end? And how many connections do they have, to get rid of all that inventory?
It's a lot of work. I mean, estate sale companies I know, like in my area, they won't do unless there's like $5,000 or more worth of stuff. A lot of estate sale companies won't take it on. So, if a lot of people don't realize that these estate sale companies will go into a house maybe 2-3 weeks ahead of time and start pricing these items because it's a lot of work. And whatever's left over, they either have to hire a moving company to come move the stuff out. They really have to take care of it all themselves. So getting in good with them can really open up some doors, like you said earlier, about coming back at the end of the sale and buying up what's left over. Because a lot of estate sale companies only make their money on what they sell. They're getting a percentage of those sales. So if you can come back at the end of the day, save them time and work for getting rid of all those items and just make a big bulk purchase, it's another good option.
Good. Awesome. Those are some great tips. I feel like we're going to have a lot of little tips from this one. And we talked about already, so my next question was going to be, where do you sell all this inventory? We kind of already talked about that. But since you're doing both, you're making listings and you're doing live sales, about how much inventory are you looking to acquire per week?
So it's really going to vary based on kind of what's out there and what's around. But I guess how I acquire inventory just is changed because before I would only buy items that was on a list on eBay, maybe $15 to $20 or higher, because I was just selling on eBay and eBay only. And then I love buying clothes at garage sales because I love vintage clothing. I love buying, sports clothing. But I came to realize that I really hate listing it. So I actually pay my mother-in-law to take the measurements, and she takes pictures for me and creates drafts. So now when I go out sourcing, I'm sourcing for clothing for her to do listings. I'm sourcing stuff to list on eBay only. And then I'm also looking for items that I can sell just on live sales because, there's items at the garage sale that I can maybe get, $3, $4, $5 on eBay. It's not worth my time to take time to list those. But if I can get a massive lot of, say, I don't know, Disney plush that I can maybe get $3, $4 on eBay. But if I run those on Whatnot and I'm selling those every, 15 to 30 seconds, well, how many of those can you do within an hour? So, your return is a lot higher, and it's, sell items that like-minded items that are going to be easy to ship. So I do graphic tees on Whatnot. I do plush on Whatnot. I do Disney pins on Whatnot, stuff that's easy, condensed to ship. I'm about to start doing sports cards on Whatnot. So I source differently per platform. So it just really comes down to what I have. I have enough merchandise that I don't need to go sourcing for an entire year. Legit entire year. I have that much merchandise. And I have a tendency, because I'm really good at networking, to oversource. So another thing I've been doing is on the district platform, there's a guy named the Commonwealth Picker. He has a platform called Shop Commons, which allows resellers to buy items from other resellers. So what I've been doing is a lot of these, if I come to a yard sale and I find a really good bulk deal, I'll buy everything, and then I'll list as a wholesale lot on there. And you just have to take a 60-second video, pop it up there, and I list those items with enough meat in the bone for other resellers to make money. And that's another way for me to sell too. So it just really comes down to what I come across. So there's times I'll fill up my entire truck twice in a day. There's times I'll just fill up my back seat. Just depends on what I find.
Well, perfect. Okay. And you have a way to get rid of things like you said, in bulk to other resellers if you get overwhelmed there.
One thing I'd like to just add to that is, I think the biggest mistake resellers make is we buy items because we find it's a good deal and then we think we can make money on it. And we need to reverse engineer that thought process. When I buy items, I know where I'm going to sell the item before I buy it. So if I have a buyer in mind already or a platform in mind where I'm going to sell that item, a lot of times in the past I would find myself buying items that I'm like, why did I buy this? But I would just buy it because it was a good deal. Just be buying items because it's a good deal doesn't always make it the best decision for your business. So take the mindset of where you guys are going to make those good buys, where you're going to move those, and how fast you're going to move it, and that's going to change your mindset on how you source.
That's a really good tip. That is a really good tip. So we mentioned we're almost out of time. So I wanted to ask, we mentioned that you started cross-listing to Whatnot using Vendoo and how much that's changed your business. Are there any other tools or features on Vendoo that have helped you grow and scale your business as well?
So I did cross-list in the past with other platforms, and one thing I found, one of the biggest issue was I'm so busy. I run 3 YouTube channels. I'm trying to sell multiple platforms. I'm a one-man operation here, and I was finding myself selling items on one platform and not delisting it from other platforms. So having the delist feature on Whatnot, on Vendoo, it has been an absolute game changer. And then also being able to move items from one platform to another, and then moving items from a static marketplace to a live sale marketplace, which Vendoo allows me to do now, has been the biggest change for my business.
Perfect. We recently released a send offers feature. Have you been able to play with that yet?
Actually, I totally forgot about that too. Yeah, that's probably the second biggest change in my business, because Mercari and Poshmark, I was never sending offers on there because it wasn't my primary platform. I was literally just listing it and let it go, cross list it and let it go, because I would send all my offers on eBay. eBay was a big portion of my business, and then Whatnot live sales was a big portion of my business. So those other platforms were very minor. So I wasn't sending offers. Once I started to send offers, which I just started doing probably the last month or so, I've gotten a lot more sales on Poshmark, a lot more sales on Mercari. And a lot of people think that you can only sell clothing only on Poshmark, but I've been selling everything but clothing on Poshmark, which is weird,
Yeah, actually, I found that too. I've been trying to branch out a little more and sell more things than just clothing, and I've been surprised on what sells on Poshmark, and there's less competition there for those items.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad that you're doing the send offers now, because send offers is probably the number one way that I get sales on both those platforms, Poshmark and Mercari. As almost all my sales come from offers to likers. So you're gonna definitely expand your business with that.
I think reselling has changed. People want deals. The economy's been up and down. The election year, we have a lot of things going on. So the way we sell is changing and evolving over time, and people want good deals on things. And having that, be able to send those offers is been a game changer for us.
Great. Well, it's been great talking to you. I hope everyone does go ahead and subscribe. So we are going to have another guest next month that's going to help us talk about reseller taxes, which is, a stress point for a lot of resellers. And before we close out, I just want to take an opportunity to not only thank you for joining us, but give you one more opportunity to let people know where to find you. And I know you have multiple YouTube channels, so maybe just mention each one briefly so that people know where to find you.
Sure. So you guys can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook as Picking and Punching. That's my main YouTube channel, where I go to garage sales, flea markets, thrift stores, and to find items to flip online. That's going to be more the treasure hunting channel. And then I have a separate channel, which is more behind the scenes, called Flipping and Punching. And that's where I pull my orders, show you guys what's sold. I talk about my daily business strategies, what I'm doing with my business, more almost like a vlog, kind of what's going on. You'll see my pets, me hanging out with my pets too with that. And then if you guys like sports cards, I started a sports card channel called Picking and Punching Cards. And what I do is I literally open up tons of packs of cards on the channel. I just open up packs. So it takes me back to my childhood. I do daily shorts doing that. And then we do long form videos where we go to card shows, flea markets, and garage sales to find sports cards and to dig through bargain boxes and, just going back to my childhood, doing things I love to do.
Awesome. All those sound great. I've watched the main channel, so now I need to watch the flipping and punching so I can see the what sold part of the garage sale. So I'm excited about that. All right. Thank you again. Thank you for your time, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you guys. Appreciate being here.